I do.
And how many pages is that, sir?
About two.
And as you sit here under oath, do you read? Is this your written testimony?
Yes.
And so, as to the statements therein, in that testimony, can you affirm under oath that this is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
You have up to 10 minutes to provide a summary of your written testimony, if you choose to do so.
No, I think I'm good.
Ms. Pishota?
Can you tell us how long you have been a part of Kahu Mauna?
I believe about November 4th, 2014, I was voted in, and that stayed current until February 20th of last year or so.
Can you explain who Kahu Mauna is?
Kahu Mauna, as I understand it, is the Cultural Advisory Board to the Office of Mauna Kea Management, state mandated.
Mandated by what?
To my understanding, and I've never read the documents myself, but it is my understanding that we were mandated because of the previous discrepancies between UH and the Hawaiian community, that the Hawaiian community wasn't really getting the attention and the level of respect that it deserved in sacred areas. And so that's why it was mandated for there to be a board.
Okay, and so Kahu Mauna is an advisory board, correct?
Correct.
And you advise whom?
The Office of Mauna Kea Management.
And do you know when Office of Mauna Kea Management was produced or created?
I do
or
not.
Imagined or something? Was it in 2000 when they approved the 2000 master plan?
Personally, I have no idea, but it's timeline-wise, that sounds to fit.
Were you ever given the 2000 master plan to review?
I was given a box of documentation that was way more than I was able to peruse through, so I may have been and overlooked it because of the plethora of documentation.
When you were, so who oversees you folks? Who oversees Kahu Mauna?
Overseas?
Or who, well, it's OMCAM, and so you're advising OMCAM, but are you advising also the management board, the Mauna Kea management board?
We were never at any of those meetings as Kahu Mauna, so I'm not sure. OMKM, Stephanie Nagato is pretty much the primary person that we dealt with as Kahu Mauna.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking. So, and were you ever consulted, or actually, let me back up. Were you ever given a copy of the Mauna Kea Temple Report, Protecting the Sacred Resource, put together by Mauna Kea Nainaho and the Royal Order of Kamehameha?
It may have been included in the documentation. If I remember correctly, it was in there, but I haven't looked at it through the particulars.
Okay. So, what are you, in your understanding, what are you called upon to advise about?
In my understanding of the documentation, it was to be advised on cultural issues that would affect the Native Hawaiian community or those practitioners that were practicing their religion, spirituality, whatever word you want to use, atop that area of Mauna Kea that the university was responsible for managing, supposedly.
Okay. Can you give us a short explanation of some of your experiences in trying to perform such a duty?
Well, it's a very interesting, varied experience. My role in Mauna Kea, and even up to being a Kahu Mauna member, was very. Family-wise, we have our own spiritual practices and cultural beliefs and what we do as a family. Yeah, up until, I would say, right after the groundbreaking, there wasn't really a whole lot even leading up after till maybe the protests, I believe, March, April, maybe, I mean, it was a very confused time, so maybe even leading up to it, there wasn't very much being very tied into the Hawaiian community myself. I was aware that culture things were happening, and still it wasn't brought up to us for any real review or any real opinions or any real research as to how to address those things, except for maybe little questions here and there. And most of the time they were asking us questions that seemed to really not have anything to do with us as cultural practitioners. I mean, whether the AC unit sensor gets replaced or not because of a change in regulation, I have no idea what to advise culturally upon that. So that's really what we were asked to do most of the time, is this AC unit and that sensor, is that okay if we replace them? Okay.
Were you ever asked to, give opinion or mana'o on the lele on Pu'uvekiu?
Personally, no. Not asked my personal opinion at all. I don't believe it ever even came up.
Were you aware at all that it had been removed numerous times?
I had been made aware because of my own community, but not because of my involvement with KKM, Kahu, Mauna.
Okay. Were you ever asked to consult regarding My Family Ahu, for example, or any other Ahu for that matter?
Negative.
Did you ever hear of any antiquities being stolen or removed from within the quarry while you were at Kahu Mauna?
Not through the organization.
And were you ever asked by anyone to consult also regarding burials on Mauna Kea?
We were asked to consult on burials, but it seemed the process that I would kind of feel awkward if I spoke for anybody else on Kahu Mauna. So in my understanding of what they were asking us in the burials was if they were proper or not. And really, that's, as a cultural practitioner, that's not something I can answer towards. Every family, as a cultural practitioner, every family has their own specifics. We get kind of one general idea out there that is kind of stuff that has been brought up before to kind of put us as Native Hawaiians inside a box, or Hawaiians in general in some kind of framework in a box. And I understand that from the outside perspective, it's necessary almost so that they can get kind of a middle ground and an understanding, but yet it never really gets there. And
when I ask you about that, who in particular was asking you questions regarding burial?
That would be Stephanie.
And she was asking you just with regards to OMKM, or?
As far as Kahu Mauna, as what I know, we only dealt with OMKM in the meetings as I was at, so I would assume OMKM.
Were you ever asked to provide mana'o or opinions on public access and Mauna Kea access, the Mauna Kea access road?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't remember.
That's okay. Were you ever asked to give opinion or mana'o on the rangers and any of their behaviors?
Not as far as I know.
Were any complaints ever brought to Kahu Mauna by the director, Stephanie, or anyone else regarding rangers or no access or access being denied or anything like that?
We were provided rangers reports, but there wasn't any complaints or anything that I saw as attached to any of the reports.
Did you feel you were allowed to comment regarding rangers or quote-unquote rangers, whatever?
Not at all.
Okay. Were you asked to advise on the TMT?
Not at all.
You weren't asked at all? On the TMT?
It might have been before I was part of KKM.
Okay. So were you working during, were you still on Kahu Mauna during the groundbreaking?
No, I was asked to join KKM after that.
Okay. And then your overall experience sitting there, give us a sense of that. Could you, your overall?
If I might be real honest, it felt like a scapegoat organization where it was kind of put into the place so that it would satisfy the mandate, but with no real, what I would say, teeth behind it, no real resources, no real, anything to actually get done what they were asking us to achieve was not supported really in any way. What
were you specifically give us examples of things that you were being asked to achieve?
According to my understanding of the scope of work that really came up, it's almost as if they wanted us to reverb the cultural resource management. They're not statutes. What are they? Ordinances, I guess. And hopefully get the right public opinion that might come to some sort of agreement, maybe between the Hawaiian community and OMKM and respectively TMT.
The Cultural Resource Management Plan that would be a part of the Comprehensive Management Plan, is that the one you're referring to?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That also has a public access, natural resource.
Right.
Okay. That are a function of the Comprehensive Management Plan. Okay.
Right.
So, what do you kind of mean by reverb?
It's interesting. So I'm still not, I guess they're ordinances, but the cultural resource management ordinances that I saw as when I first joined Kahu Mauna looked very similar to the rules that 2008 we had a visit while I was a part of Kanaka Council by two gentlemen that were representing the proposed TMT project. One of them was a Dr. Chang, I think, and the other was a Jean-Luc
Shimo
from MIT. Sorry, I'm
Caltech, yes.
Caltech. Who had meetings with us as our own entity, as Kanaka Council, asking us if we would approve of what they're trying to do and the project and why and whatnot. And the rules that they got said that they got them out of the management rules from Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And if we would be okay with those rules kind of being the rules that would govern that place. And I think as an organization at that time, we said, sure, as long as you exempt us as Hawaiians, we're okay with everything.
You mean the Kanaka Council said this?
Right. And then when I got into Kahu Mauna, the cultural resource management indicators or objectives, whatever you want to call them, they look very similar. As far as access and who would be able to go and for what reasons and when and how and the process that would take place in order to manage that. And it was very almost appalling to see that as an organization of Native Hawaiians, of cultural practitioners, that was completely cultural practitioners and telling them what we had said as far as not wanting anything wordage like that, how closely related they were, even though we know, as many other groups have said, we don't want it. And then to see a process with it inside was very...
You're referring to the cultural resource management plan, for example, that says that the university has a right to determine what is culturally appropriate,
right,
and what is not.
Right.
Like to determine if a lele is culturally appropriate, to determine if ahus are.
Right. And even to the point where if you're going to, I cannot determine as a culture practitioner the purpose for the lele and everything that you would be putting up as a culture practitioner. So how really would we come up with that kind of document to govern that kind of relationship when even the person you're asking doesn't have the right to speak for another person in that realm? How does this apply? Right.
Do you believe that the cultural resource management plan is a plan that was put together by the university? It's I guess it is, parts of it are included in the conservation district use application. So did you compare any of the rules that they were suggesting within there that would be applied to Native Hawaiians with state law, for example, like the Constitution, Article 12, Section 7, relating to Native Hawaiian access and gathering and traditional and customary cultural and religious practice? You know, I mean, did you...
Did I compare the two?
Yeah, or did you feel, you know, I mean, did you look at them did you compare them?
Personally, yes. But it feels very similar to a lot of the documents that speak to the same thing of governing a group of people in which the authority or the supposed authority doesn't have any authority to govern. So it's, I mean, these governments exist, I mean, these documents exist in all sorts of ways in all different countries.
So Kanaka Council made that those statements to Dr. Henry Yang and Dr. Shimo of Caltech, and then you felt like, is it correct to say that you felt like your comments were completely ignored?
They weren't even in the CRM.
Okay.
I mean, and not the CMP, in the, what is it, the assessment that they did prior to applying, and it, like our statements, our council isn't even in the record at all. Even though we ate dinner with them, they brought stuff down, we gave them stuff, we still didn't even make it into the recorded conversations.
So Kahu Mauna follows Sunshine Law, or sort of, or do you know?
I don't even know. It's a good question.
Are your meetings...
As an advisory board, I mean...
You advise the president also, is that right? Or just OMKM?
I've never had a meeting or convening with the president in that capacity as KKM.
Okay. And so, president of University of Hilo or Manoa, you haven't ever had a visit, or...
Not as part of Kahu Mauna, no.
Have you ever had a visit by anyone from Institute for Astronomy?
Not as Kahu Mauna. Well, Institute... We had a lot of astronomers. I'm not sure if any of them were connected with the Institute of Astronomy.
Did you participate, or were you consulted at all about the rules that were implemented during the Keahi stand, you know, the rules that were overturned by Judge Ibarra later?
No.
Okay. Were you arrested at all?
I was.
Okay. And what were you charged with?
Felony trespass.
Trespass by the county police or DoCare?
That gets interesting because I'm pretty sure I was handcuffed by a DLNR officer, but then the case came up in county. So, I mean, as a former police officer, I'm confused. Is the agencies, are the agencies working together, or, I mean, how is this? Who's got what? And sometimes it does happen that way, but it's usually something that you're able to clarify with the officer as it's happening. And
Did you, did they tell you on the time of arrest what the charges were?
No.
Or where were you processed? Up at Halepohaku or down at?
Hawaii Hilo County Police Station.
Okay, and so you just said you were a former police officer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, did you feel that the arrest was lawful?
Not at all.
Okay. Did you, was it your understanding that the Supreme Court was reviewing our case and that, and had not said yay or nay that the permit should be granted or not? The permit was being questioned in the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
And was it your belief that it was in court and therefore they should not have been moving?
That, sorry.
Kalamai. I'm sorry, I lost my place.
No, you were asking me if I understood that the state case was going on as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understood that the state case had not yet been resolved, and that only made my stance to kind of stop what was going on until we could slow things down and have the conversations that are necessary to kind of come to some sort of understanding before moving forward with TMT, any of those agreements, because knowing that moving forward and creating that, what eventually ended up happening would make it harder to do my job as a Kahu Mauna member. If you're asking me to go back to my Hawaiian community and ask them how they feel about this, and then you arrest them, really not helping yourself out.
Right. And so was it also your understanding, or was it your feeling up there that you had no choice, that you needed to make the stand, and you had no other choice?
Absolutely. I mean, as a culture practitioner, as a person on Kahu Mauna who was already advising against what they were doing,
and were your charges dropped later, or did the court just throw them out, so to speak?
Well, the charges were dropped, but that still doesn't deal with the psychological impacts, yeah, or the trauma that we've been talking about all morning. So, yeah, I mean, as far as the process being fair and understandable, I guess because of some of my connections in history and law enforcement, I wasn't treated unfairly. I was observing the unfair treatment of other people who were being arrested, and how those are happening, but
also, as a former law enforcement person yourself, would it be safe to say that it was also traumatizing to the officers having to do the arrest because there was confusion?
Absolutely.
Is that confusion?
I mean, I don't want to speak for them either, but I mean,
Yeah.
it looks to me as if they were just as confused as we were. I mean,
and the confusion is sort of jurisdictional confusion. Who is arresting? Who is processing? Who is?
right.
Is it state law enforcement or county law enforcement? Is that the kind of confusion?
Right. It seemed unclear, according to them, even whose arrests they were making on behalf of who, and who had the authority to do so because of the jurisdiction that they were trying to figure out.
Were you only arrested once?
I was.
Okay. Were you up above at the?
I was at the summit.
At the summit. Okay. Okay. What was the date of that one?
What was the what?
What was the date of
Oh.
your arrest? Do you remember?
I actually don't remember the exact date.
So yeah, I don't know dates either, but I was going to write it down, but. That's okay.
I don't.
That's okay. Let me ask you this. From your personal, the stress or the experience that you had in being arrested, was that because you're having conflict in mentally stressful, or is it physically stressful also to you?
Oh, I mean,
All of the above.
how do you separate that stress between mind, body, and spirit as happening? I mean, stress is stress, and just deal with it and try and resolve the conflicts as they go.
So you joined Kahu Mauna, or you accepted the position to do right by the mountain, in your opinion. I mean, is that your testimony, that you wanted to participate to make things right for Mauna Kea?
Absolutely. I mean, my whole life I've been very understanding and very educated in process, and so when I'm of the one understanding that process may be the resolution, but then process turns out to be kind of just empty frame, and realizing that process wasn't really serving the community that had been created to serve. I mean, it's almost arbitrary to say that you've created that process that serves a community that can't come up with its own process. Is that what it was alluding to? It's very disheartening to try and appeal to the process and then have the process just kind of explode in your face, and you realize that it's not the avenue to go down to. I mean, that is the creation of cognitive dissonance in our community, pretty much. I mean, because of the education that we're given and the way that the entire world is framed. I mean, there's a reason why there are so many olelo no eao and so many analogies. You know, and I'm pounding the round pin into the square hole and all of those things. I mean, we just don't fit in a box.
So, is it that okay, actually, I want to just say this. If the TMT is built, would you feel an injury to yourself and to your people?
I'm not sure if this is a word, but I would feel a generational injury. Not only would I feel it, but so would my ancestors to come, and as much as those before are slapping me in the head when they went, because that's really what causes me to do what I do. It's those generations that have set up everything before me that I continue to perpetuate.
Yes. Mahalo.
Mahalo.